think about it. You either win or you lose. But there's another way to think about it. You either win or you learn. It's a much nicer way to think about it, because if you don't win, if you fail, you've actually, and if you use that experience to learn or recognise what you have learned, then every experience can be productive. Every experience can lead to future success. And so we win or we learn. Now when it comes to self-sabotage, I actually create a little acronym called losers. Just to help me remember it. You don't have to remember this. This is just something that I use to remember the 6 reasons why people self-sabotage. And so if we self-sabotage, you could say that we're losing. We're learning a great deal, I'm sure, but we're losing. And what we really want to do is be winners. So we want to win. So I create another little acronym. And these are just simply ways, like I said, for me to understand. You don't have to learn these. But let's talk about why you self-sabotage, and then let's talk about maybe a behaviour that you do, and maybe we can have a bit of a discussion about that, where we can identify which of these 6 categories you fall into, or your behaviour falls into. Your self-sabotaging attempts, which one they fall into. So the first one, Elle, actually, what did you come up with? You got any for me? Who thinks they can think of a reason why somebody would self-sabotage?
Insecurity.
Insecurity, that's a good one. Good answer. Feeling insecure. Sorry? Low self-esteem is excellent. Excellent. That's actually my first one is loss of self-worth. See, that's a big thing. What I was talking about before was actually there's a term in psychology called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance simply means that there's a disconnect between perhaps our beliefs and values, or the beliefs and values that we want, and what's actually going on in our lives. Who knows what I'm talking about there? And sometimes, like in Christianity and other places, the term called hypocrisy is used. Who's heard that term? Heard that term, hypocrisy? Hypocrisy simply means you're saying one thing, but you're actually doing something else. Like it might be a preacher saying, love others and be kind, and in the background there's behaviours there that aren't consistent with his calling or with what he's supposed to be doing. And we know what we're talking about. And if you talk about, anyway, the great cover-up and the different things that have happened in recent times, there's been a lot exposed through the churches about where this is happening, where there's this cognitive dissonance. And so that happens because there's a loss of self-worth. We actually struggle so much that we're feeling as though we can't do it. And the more we fail, it becomes that negative spiral, like I spoke of with that woman at the beginning, who's now an alcoholic, was a bank manager. So once we go in that negative spiral and we begin to stack our failures, what happens then? It's just this downward run. And we don't know how to stop it. And the other thing is we start to build momentum. And if we turn the other direction, when we spiral up, we can actually build momentum that way too. But loss of self-worth is one. Okay, so that could be the reason you self-sabotage, is because you're losing your idea of self-worth. Maybe you don't know who you are. Maybe you feel disconnected, or you feel alone. And so your self-worth has taken a battering, has taken a beating. Maybe somebody rejected you and it crushed you. And this crushing, you've never got over it. And so your lack of... Like if somebody rejects you, especially if you go through a divorce, what you're looking at is 2 people that know each other, probably better than anyone in the world, been together a number of years, and suddenly it's over. That's crushing. Because this person who knows you best has just rejected you. Ouch. That hurts. Okay, so we can lose some self-worth over rejection. So that's the first one. Any others? That's another reason why we might self-sabotage.
Fixed mindset.
Which one?
Fixed mindset.
A fixed mindset. I like that. Which one would that be? A fixed mindset would be...
Stubbornness.
How about this one? Revert too familiar. I think that would be right, a fixed mindset. So you go back to the way things used to be. So what happens is you start to succeed. You start to get ahead. You're making money. Everything's going great. Maybe your relationship, you found the person of your dreams. But then we put on this show, don't we? Say, look how good I am. Look how we always put our best foot forward, don't we? We start a new relationship. You don't show your weaknesses. You lead with your strengths. Oh, look, I'm good at this and I'm great at this and I'm great. You always show all these good things. What happens when you're in a relationship? Sometimes we revert to what's familiar. So if you're a lazy person, you can put on a show for a few months while you're dating, can't you? Maybe even some people can carry it over a few years, really put on a good show. But what happens is we can revert to what's familiar. We go back to what we know. We settle it at another level. It's like water. You know, there's this poem that says, sometimes when you're feeling important, when your ego's in elegant bloom, when you naturally take it for granted that you're the best in the room. If you feel that your sudden departure would leave an unfillable hole, just follow this simple example and see how it humbles your soul. Take a bucket and fill it with water. Put your hand in up to your wrist. Remove it and the hole remaining is a measure of how you'll be missed. Now you can splash all you want as you enter. You can stir up the water galore, but stop and you'll find in a moment it looks quite the same as before. Now the moral to this quaint example is to do just the best that you can. Be proud of yourself, but remember there is not an indispensable man. Remember, water always finds its level. It always finds its level. And so in this, when we start to get a little ahead, sometimes our mind will unconsciously pull us back and said, no, you're supposed to be doing this. Because it's so familiar with it. Yes?
Do you think that is also related maybe with like you feel so comfy in that spot? It's like, oh, I can do it with my eyes closed.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what, no, like you want to go
yes.
further,
yes.
but your unconscious is like, oh, but this is so comfy, so
yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but something like that.
So maybe you're talking about comfort zone.
Yeah.
You're talking about safety.
Yeah.
And like, safety is one of the basic needs for all of us. We all want that. Safety is one of our fundamental needs. And if we're safe and feeling protected and we're feeling comfortable, then yes, definitely we don't progress. In fact, I always say that too much ease and luxury is the enemy to progress. And so what you've got to do is find comfort in discomfort. Does that make sense? Find comfort in discomfort. That means we want to push outside of those comfort zones. Do things which are difficult. If we continually push and stretch ourselves, continue to push ourselves, then we don't fall into that stagnation that you're talking about, where we want to revert to what's familiar. This is even worse than that. What you're talking about is a stopping. Oh, I'm comfortable. I'll relax. Reverting to what familiar is, I want to go back to the old way. So it's actually even worse than that. So if somebody for example, had an addiction in the past, and suddenly you go through a difficult situation, guess what your brain does? I know how to solve that. There's a great drug that'll make you feel good. Remember, you used it as a teenager. Go back and try some more of that. You'll feel good in no time. You know, suddenly it's a trigger. And that trigger goes off, we go back to what's familiar, and then suddenly we go down a different pathway. Okay, that's how addictions can grab us. Because once it gets very technical, once we've myelinated axons, you've got axons in your brain, you've got a substance called myelin. Once you myelinate these axons, and once they're fully coated in myelin, you can't unmyelinate unless you get a disease like multiple sclerosis. So once you've got a myelinated pathway in your brain, and all myelination does is it speeds up the signal between brain cells, between neurons, by up to 100 times. So when you've done something over and 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 over again, what happens is every time you do it, that action, that behaviour, that aggression, whatever it is, your brain myelinates it, wraps myelin around it. Now, glial cells create this myelin. Once it's wrapped around it sufficiently until it becomes saturated in myelin, the signal then moves 100 times faster. That's why someone who's an alcoholic, really hard to stop that. Really hard not to drink alcohol, because you've got this pathway that's so myelinated in your brain that the minute you think or see a drink, you're straight down that pathway. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there. How
Yes.
long does it take to myelinate?
How long does it take?
How long does it take? Years, or does it take?
Yeah, I think it's more like the years, to fully saturate with myelin. So what happens is, if you started a behaviour, myelin starts wrapping, and the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, and you'll notice that's why we get. There's 4 levels of consciousness. We have unconscious incompetence is where we start, and then we have conscious incompetence, and then we have conscious competence, and then we have unconscious competence. So what happens is, when we learn something and we get really good at it, we become unconsciously competent at it. And the best example is probably driving a car, riding a bike. So when you drive a car, the first time you drive a car, you've got to look at everything, you've got to set up the mirrors and the seat. Now and there's probably 20 or 30 things to do. Head checks, okay, indicator on, indicator off, turn the corner, 10 to 2 with your hands, your gear stick, if it's a gear stick, sorry, if it's a manual vehicle. So you've got all these things to think about, whereas now you just get in a car and drive. So you're doing all these 30 things. And that's just an example. And now it's just one thing. I just drive. You no longer have to think about those 30 things. You just have to think one thought, I'm going to get in the car and drive. So what's happened is, you've done it so much that you've myelinated those thoughts and those behaviours so much that you become unconsciously competent, which means you get into a situation called flow. Sorry, I'll go into a lot more detail at another stage, but does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, make sense? So it just takes time. It takes a lot of time. And you know yourself how long it would take you before you just got into a car and drove. Would have been 6 months or 12 months, a couple of years even, and then suddenly one day you just sat in the car and just drove, and you wound up at your destination, and then you got there and you go, how did I get here? And you can't even remember the journey. Who's done that? Like wondering whether you've run over some people, you don't even know. You wouldn't know what you did. You want to kill. In fact, that's your brain probably keeping you safe. You just murdered 10 people. So you're probably not. Okay, let's look at some others. Out of control. You see, when we succeed, we may feel out of control, because there's need to revert to what's familiar. You see, we might have had control of our success and failure, and now we see ourselves getting successful, and we feel as though we're out of control. I don't know what to do. What do I do in this situation? I've got so many phone calls and so many people, business is going great, money's rolling in, but suddenly the stress level is going through the roof. And here we are thinking, I don't know what to do, I'm out of control. You know what I'll do? I'll stop making it to key meetings. I'll stop answering the phone. And suddenly, we come back to a level where we're in control again. And we go, finally, I'm back to this position where I'm in control again.
Out of control, is that like also uncharted territory?
Absolutely.
I don't really know. I haven't been here before.
Comfort zone as well. So we're talking about comfort zone. So you're going into the unknown.
Yeah.
You're going past what you knew, and suddenly there's like 3 areas, 3 arenas. What you know you don't know, and out here is what you don't know. So all this is the uncharted territory. And mind you, when we go to the seminar, what we do is we work here. What you don't even know, you don't know.
So why do we revert to familiar if familiar fails us?
It's habit. This is simply habit. This is going back to the old myelinated pathways. It's because at some level, it works. If you look at your needs, we have 6 human needs, basic human needs. We have, the need for certainty, the need for variety. We have the need for significance, the need for love and connection. We also have the need for contribution and growth. There are 6 human needs. Now, you'll either meet your needs in a positive way, or you'll meet them in a negative way. So the reason we do this is we're meeting our needs, but we're doing it in a negative way. But the unconscious mind doesn't care. as long as the needs are met. The unconscious says, I don't care how you do it, just meet the need. I have a need right now to get away from this pain. I don't care how you meet it. And so you go and you take the drug, or you go and you have the alcohol. Because it instantly kills the pain. And it works. In the short term, it actually works. But what about the long term? And so that's when we know consciously this isn't going to work long term. The unconscious mind doesn't care. The unconscious mind wants the result. It's like a 6 to 8 year old child, your unconscious mind. Think of it as a little child who you love and who loves you very much and wants the best for your life. But it doesn't have that foresight. It doesn't have that vision. It doesn't have that understanding like your conscious mind does. It doesn't know that the drugs or the alcohol is going to screw your life up. It's going to put you in a hole and leave you there permanently. It doesn't know how disabling those things are. It doesn't understand that. All it knows is it solved the problem before, it'll solve it again. So we revert to what's familiar. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Answer your question? All right. So what else have we got? Scapegoat. With scapegoat, there's 3 words that I think about. One is irresponsible. One is responsible. And one is, this one's 2 words actually, is not responsible. So think of those 3 words. Irresponsible, responsible, and not responsible. Now, which one do we want in life? If we're going to take full control of our life, which one do we want? Responsible. And we think of ourselves as responsible human beings. We're responsible. Now, who likes to be thought of themselves as irresponsible? Who likes that? Who likes when somebody says, you're irresponsible? What if a work colleague said it? What if our boss said it? Called us irresponsible? What would that do to your confidence? And so we work really hard to be responsible. Now, those times when we are irresponsible, what do we call it? What do we say? I'm not responsible. Because it's much better to be not responsible than to be irresponsible. Okay, and so we revert to that. We go to, I'm not responsible. And so when we're not responsible, what do we look for? Someone else or something to blame for our behaviour. And this is how we use our unconscious mind, as a scapegoat. And this is how we use self-sabotage, as a scapegoat. And you say, of course I destroyed my marriage. Of course I destroyed it. I was too busy at the office. I was too busy meeting her safety needs. Because I'm not responsible for destroying the marriage. Because I had to look after my wife's needs for safety and security. And I need to make the money. And if I bring the money in, she's safe, she's secure, she's happy. And I spend all my time at work. But of course the relationship wasn't going to work. Of course it wasn't going to work. Because I didn't nurture her. I didn't love her the way she needed to be loved. So of course. And so we use self-sabotage sometimes as a scapegoat. Even the unconscious behaviours. We blame the behaviours, we blame the circumstances rather than taking full responsibility. Rather than saying, I'm responsible. And because I'm responsible, I was actually irresponsible. Who knows what I'm talking about? It's much easier to say this, isn't it? I'm not responsible. And who's played the blame game? Blame somebody else for your problems. You got a problem? Blame somebody else for it. It's much easier. And we feel much better. And so we think, well, this will build my self-worth. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You're just lying to yourself. What you're doing is you're decreasing your self-worth once again. You're losing self-worth because you're lying to yourself, you're deceiving yourself, you're pretending. And there's nothing worse than a pretender. And that's what we do. We use it as a scapegoat. Does that make sense? All right, let's go to another. Is this interesting? Who's learning something? Who's learning more than one thing? Yeah, good. Good. This will get us thinking. All right, next one is to end boredom. Why on earth would somebody sabotage to end boredom? Some people love drama. Love it. They thrive on drama. And when things are going perfectly smooth and well, What's there to live for? It's just so boring. It's just so boring. And so what we do is we self-sabotage. We throw a spanner into the works. We say something stupid in public and we end the boredom. And suddenly we create turmoil. And turmoil brings what? Energy. Energy from others, anger, aggression, but it's still energy. And it ends boredom. And so sometimes we'll self-sabotage to end the boredom. When things are going smooth, things are going well, when we're soaring with the eagles, why do we do it? It's crazy, isn't it? But sometimes we do it to end boredom. And this could be, and just so you know, all of these things could be conscious or they could be unconscious, below the surface of conscious thought. So all of these behaviours could be happening in the background. So anytime we're heading towards a goal, an outcome, and something happens that prevents us from getting there, and I'm not talking about normal failure, where you're moving towards a goal and something else happens in your life that creates a situation where you fall short of that goal. And notice I didn't say failure, I said fall short. And maybe if you continued on that journey, you said it was going to happen in 2019, in June, and maybe it takes you to June 2020, but you still get there. So that wasn't a failure. Okay, so if things happen around you and it prevents you from getting that goal that you want, that's not a failure. That's not necessarily self-sabotage. That could be the timing's not right. That could be a multiplicity of other reasons. However, if we're heading towards our goal and then we divert and suddenly we're heading in a whole completely different direction, that could possibly be self-sabotage. So one of these reasons. Now, once again, it's whether conscious or unconscious. It could be one or the other, or it could be both. Last one. Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors, that's an R. Smoke and mirrors, what do I mean by that? The magicians of the world, right? What do magicians do? They're masters of illusion. They can show us something, pack of cards, a ball, and suddenly vanishes. Now, are they really magicians? Do they really make it vanish? Or do they just use tricks, sleight of hand, tricks of, look over here, and suddenly it's gone. Perceptual shifts, different skills and techniques that they use. So smoke and mirrors with self-sabotage means that at some level, you feel like a fraud. At some level, you feel like you can't do it. You're not worthy of it, or you're not made for it. You just don't feel like you can act the part anymore. The true you's got to come out. Know what I'm talking about? And at some level we feel that, whether consciously or unconsciously, but we feel like it's smoke and mirrors. We feel like we're a bit of bluff. We feel like we're not really the person that we're portraying ourselves to be. And then when we feel that way, sometimes then we self-sabotage to say, I'm not really this person. I've got to stop lying to others and lying to myself. I've got to stop pretending to be something I'm not. I've got to be who I really am. Make sense? Okay, so there's 6 reasons why people self-sabotage. Think about one of the areas in your life where you self-sabotage. One of the areas in life. And I want you to think about which one pops out for you. Is it a loss of self-worth? At some level, I don't feel worthy of that. Do you feel out of control? Do you feel like, at least I can control my own descent into despair? I can have full control over that, but I can't have control over my climb to success. I don't know where it'll take me. It's unfamiliar territory. Scapegoat? Do we need something to blame for why we didn't make it work so we can tell the story? Oh, you know what? I could have been rich and powerful if it wasn't for the taxation laws. If it wasn't for child support, I'd be wealthy. I'd own 3 houses by now if it wasn't for child support. Now we need something to blame. Scapegoat, a handy scapegoat. Is it to end boredom? Did you self-sabotage to stop the boredom? It's too normal. She feels like I'm with my sister. No, don't use that as it. In relationships sometimes. People get that comfortable with each other. It's like, where's the passion? The passion's disappeared. It's too comfortable. Revert to familiar. We want to go back to what we know. Or smoke and mirrors. Do you feel like a fraud? Like you're making it up? Get to the part that, how do I resolve this? How do I actually get rid of this? And then we'll answer the question as to why you're here. So, this one, win. What do we do to win? So, first of all, build your self-worth. And I'm going to be very quick with this. I've got a lot to get through still, so I'm going to be very rapid with this. So we build our self-worth. How do we build our self-worth? We make and keep commitments, first of all, with ourselves. Second, we make and keep commitments to others. And third, we make and keep commitments to God or our higher self. That's it. That's how every one of those behaviours, making and keeping commitments, will raise your level of self-worth. You'll feel so good. There's one man who was struggling with everything. He was depressed, couldn't even get out of bed in the morning, barely. And he started working with an expert by the name of Stephen Covey. If anyone's read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So in that book he talked about this example where this person could barely do anything. And he said, I simply want you to get out of bed and make your bed. That's it. He gave him the littlest assignment, knowing that if he did that little tiny thing, that was going to build his self-worth. And so he did it for a week. And you know what? At the end of the week, he gave him another assignment that was a little bit bigger. And he started little by little building this man's self-worth. Because he made and kept commitments to himself, was to make the bed, and made and kept commitments to his coach. So his coach said, do this. Now he was accountable to somebody else. And that's why coaching's so valuable. You can't do this alone. You can try, but we can't do it alone. No man is an island. No one can do it on their own. That's why we're in families. That's why we're in communities. We don't do these things alone. Because if you're holding yourself accountable and you've let yourself down 10,000 times in the past, what are you going to do? You're going to revert to what's familiar and you'll let yourself down again. So that's why coaching is so valuable. Having a personal trainer, valuable. Because that keeps you on edge. It keeps you motivated. Keeps you pushing yourself. Because now you're accountable not just to yourself, you're accountable to someone else. But if you want the highest level of accountability, your higher self, the universe or God, be accountable to the best part of yourself. Be accountable to God. Whatever you believe God to be accountable to God. And if you're accountable to God on that highest level, that will build your self-worth quicker than anything else. Okay, if you believe that you're a child of God, that's going to build your self-worth because you've now got a powerful identity. And with identity, I also put purpose. Once you discover your identity and purpose, Dilts has a pyramid. And on the lower levels of that pyramid, he's a psychologist, and he spoke about different needs that we have, like capabilities or environment. Environment was the bottom, then capabilities was next. Then came values and beliefs. Then came, I can't remember the other steps, but right at the top was identity, was second from the top, and right at the top was purpose. So he said if you discover your identity, everything below that level changes in your life. Your values, your beliefs, your capabilities, it all shifts because you've discovered who you are. You've learnt your identity, your true identity. He says if you can go one step further and learn your purpose, he said that'll shift your identity and that'll change everything in your life. So when we talk about transformation, we want to go for one of those two levels. Transformation at the stage of identity or at purpose. At one of those two levels, or both. Now, the reason I work with identity is because purpose can take time. Purpose can take a couple of years for somebody to discover their purpose. You see, my purpose is, and I'll show you, I do an incantation every morning. Who's heard of incantations? Anyone? So I say, command my unconscious mind to give me all the skill, the power, the passion, the energy, the motivation, the determination, the humour, whatever it takes to move a person from where they are to where I know they need to be. I command it. And it will be done. So that's an incantation. But my purpose goes like this. I, Josh, see, hear, feel and know that the purpose of my life is to inspire with love. with power, with authority, and reduce suffering for myself and others. So that's my purpose. And that took me a while to get my purpose. Like I said, I attended a seminar in 2015. 2016, I kind of got my purpose. 2017, I got it. And now I say that each morning. And I do it just like that. Okay? Power and authority. So we learn our identity, we learn our purpose. We discover those things. And once we do that, life changes, life's transformed. Before that, I taught no workshops. Since 2015, I've taught, I think we're up to 80 workshops. This is the 80th, I think, or 70th it might be, 70th. This is the 70th workshop tonight. And the last one, N, never give up. So what I'm suggesting is that if you want to overcome self-sabotage, if you really want to overcome self-sabotage, then what we need to work on is your self-worth. Make and keep commitments to yourself, to others, and to God. First one. Work on your identity and your purpose. Discover who you really are. Unlock your incredible self and unleash that on the world. Discover your purpose. What are you here to do? How can you inspire others? How can you lift others? How can you share the gifts and talents and skills and everything that you are with the world around you and help them to grow, like really grow? And the last one is never give up. And I like poetry. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, when you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. You see, life is queer with its twists and turns, and every one of us sometimes learns. And many a fellow turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. So don't give up though the pace seems slow. You might succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggle is given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late as the night slipped down how close he was to the golden crown. You see, success is failure turned inside out. The silver tint on the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your hardest hit. It's when things go wrong that you must not quit. It's when things go wrong that you must not quit. So the idea is we work on our self-worth. We discover our identity and our purpose, and then we never give up. We decide that it's this or nothing, and we just go for it. No matter how difficult the way, no matter if we're feeling out of control. We get rid of the scapegoats in our life and we say, no more. No more. I'm going to take full responsibility for myself, for my thoughts, for my actions, for my behaviour, for my aggression, for my anger. I'm taking full control of this. I'm going to work at it until I master it. And so this is something we practice in the seminar, emotional mastery. Actually, the whole first day is seriously all about emotional mastery. The whole first day. We do a whole day working on emotional mastery so you can master every emotion. In boredom, we decide that, you know what? The good things in life are great. Why finish it? Let's turn it into excitement. Let's get a morning routine that's exciting no matter what, if everything else is just the same. In fact, it won't be. If you live a life in transformation, nothing stays the same. If you do my excitement thing every morning, your whole life will change. Honestly, I do that twice every morning. I read a quote back in 2015 that said, basically, that if a man got excited once, it's a great thing. If you got excited, for a week or a month, it's fantastic. But one that can stay excited for 20 years, that person can change the world. And I looked at that and thought, it's not possible. How could anybody get excited for 20 years or be excited? And I'm now 3.5 years in and I've done excitement twice every day. And so I can tell you for 3.5 years, I've been excited every single day.
Don't your kids get scared?
I take it with me. Actually, my boys, I've got Joseph and Jake. So Joseph is 11. No, yeah, he's 11, just turned 11 in December. And Jake is 8. In December, he turned 8. I take him up to the hill and we go to a happy place, and that's when we do it. We do it up on the mountaintop. We go, and they do it too. They get up and jump and cheer and have fun. Yeah, so they enjoy it. Now, the reason it looks scary a little bit is because of my karate background. So I do that because these are moves that my body's used to, and I do it because a power move. I mean, having a power move instantly feel different.